Hi, Jackie.
Hi, Rick. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good.
I'm eating my chicken sandwich.
Caught you at dinner time.
Just got back from Eugene
Ah,
on my own sourdough bread.
yum. It's my favorite.
Yeah, I make a sourdough and a rye.
Nice. Not a fan of rye.
I love rye, especially dark rye.
Well, cool.
I ran across that in Morocco. It was really good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Well, I'm starting something new today. I've got my grandson come down from Portland and hooked up a big monitor, so I've got split screens here. So if it looks like I'm looking over this way, I'm looking at the big monitor and looking at the computer down here. He hasn't sent me my camera yet, so thing is. So this is the first time for split screens for me.
Good. That's a good way to do it, Audie. Good for you.
Well, it is. It puts everything up where I can use
Yeah.
everything at the same time. So
Yeah, I was actually just mentioning that to Brian today when I was in City Hall. I said, boy, I wish I had 2 screens. It would be nice. I may have to go get myself another small screen.
well, it takes your computer screen and makes it look a little tiny. 'Cause I'm dealing with a huge monitor.
That's funny.
I mean, this monitor is,
Huge, huh?
oh yeah, it's huge.
Good for you.
So, good evening, Chief. Paul, adjust your camera. I can just see from your nose up. Oh, there you go. Still the same. That's better.
That's probably a little better.
Tired. How are we doing on time? Almost at 7, guys. Trudy, do you got your flag?
Yes, I do. I meant to answer that. I couldn't find mute.
Thank you.
Mayor, it's 7 o'clock, but we're still waiting on, I believe, Councilor Hollett and Councilor Whitney.
Okay.
There's Councilor Whitney popping in.
We'll give it another minute and see if she pops in. If not, we'll go ahead and get started.
Who are you waiting? Are you waiting for me?
No, we're waiting for Counselor Hollett.
Aha, yeah, I'm here.
I saw you.
I just logged on. That's why I was like, are you waiting for me?
Even though your screen says Katie Lynn Whitney.
Oh, of course it does.
It's okay.
You know,
I know
you
how
have
you-
children, everything belongs to them.
All right, it's 7:01. We'll go ahead and get started. I'm sure Counselor Hollett will appear soon. When she does, somebody please let me know that she's there. All right, so we're going to call this December 17th, 2020 meeting to order. This is the Oakridge City Council meeting both by teleconference as well as in person at the WAC. And it is now 7:02 and we call this meeting to order. Everyone, please take your appropriate positions to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Brian, will you lead
Allegiance
us?
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and
and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Jackie, will you call the roll?
Yes. Counselor Kenyon? Counselor Kenyon? Counselor Forcum?
Here.
Counselor Hollett? Counselor Whitney?
Here,
Mayor Holston?
Here.
Counselor McClelland?
Here.
Counselor Hollett?
Oh, there she is. All right.
I'm here also, Jackie. Sorry.
All right.
I got it. I saw you.
We're all here. Great. Thank you, everyone. Additions, corrections, or adjustments to the agenda? Brian, do we have any from you?
One, when the council packet was sent out, there was an agenda item for funding for the Devonshire Group grant application. There was no agenda bill included in that, so I'm adding that to the business tonight. There'll be an agenda bill and a request for a motion.
And Brian, you know, I did see that when I clicked on the link in your email, I have an agenda bill in that link.
Huh,
So
okay.
I think everybody actually may have it.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Counselors, do you have any additions, corrections, or adjustments to the agenda? All right. If there are no, I don't see anybody waving a hand. Okay, good. Then let's move on to public comment. Let's start with those who may be at the WAC. Brian, do we have any people in attendance at the WAC who wish to make public comment?
Have a single citizen, but no comment.
Okay. Hi, single citizen. I'm glad you're there.
Hello.
And if there is any, Trudy, I see you popped up a little blue hand. If there is anybody else who wants to make public comment, please put up a blue hand. And if you don't know how, after Trudy has spoken, then unmute yourself and I'll give you a minute to come on. Trudy, go ahead, please.
I would like to offer, under my nonprofit, some grant writing because I'm terrible at it, so that the police department can get the funding needed for the shelter and I noticed on the spay and neuter program and animal control's budget being 400. So I would like to offer up an umbrella under my nonprofit in any way to help with the animal control issues that the city may need.
Thank you, Trudy. I appreciate that. And we will make that note.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else who wanted to make public comment? If so, go ahead and unmute yourself. I'm looking and I don't see anybody. Okay, so public comment is concluded then. Let's move on to mayor's comments, announcements, and proclamations. Well, this is our last council meeting of Yes? Did I
I'm
hear
sorry, I
something?
tried to get my hand up and
Oh, Audie,
unmute.
did you want to make a comment?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead.
What are we gonna do with the warming center houses that's put up there now? One. And two, was the comment on the water tower. You can't see the name until you're just about right beside it. You can't see it coming up 58.
All right. Anything else, Audie?
That's it right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, public comment. I haven't missed anybody now? Okay. Let's move on to mayor's comments then, for sure. This is our last meeting of the year, and I want to wish everybody a happy new year and a happy holidays. I know we've been through a crazy year. We're looking forward to a beginning of a crazy year that will turn into a wonderful year. I am sure of it. Also, in addition to that, I just want to remind people that there are ways that they can help their community. There's been several things posted on Facebook. We have several funds, not only the Lane Electric collects funds for electricity. The city collects funds for a water fund to help those who can't pay. There are donations that are available to be made for through our food pantry. At any time, you can go down there when they're open Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday and make a donation. I spoke to their board earlier this week, stopped in to say thank you for all that they're doing, and they encourage people to make donations, but also say that they've been very blessed this year with generosity. Food for Lane County has kept them also well supplied, but they are always in need of volunteers. So if you have an interest in doing that, please stop in and say hello to them. I'm sure there are other opportunities in the community for us to volunteer where we can. And I think during council comments, I'd like to bring up the warming center. So council, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and add that to our council comment area. And we'll have a discussion because I'm sure there are questions in the community about it. Okay, so let's move on to outgoing councilor recognition. So let me switch to my screen here a little bit so I can read what I've got here. Okay, so tonight we are recognizing 3 individuals for their service to the community as city councilors. Serving on the city council is both a privilege and a responsibility. Each of these councilors has served Oakridge with honor, and it is proper to recognize their service. 2 were appointed to their positions by the council to fill vacancies. 1 was elected to a position 4 years ago. Councilor McClelland and Councilor Kenyon applied for and were appointed by the City Council to fill vacancies. Their contributions in service to their community are recognized by the council, and on behalf of the council and the community, we extend our appreciation. Councilor Forkham was elected by the community in November 2016 and began his 4-year term as a councilor in 2017. He is the last councilor from that election to remain on the council, and I want to recognize his consistent, responsible, and thoughtful representation of our community and extend to him my appreciation as well as the appreciation of the community. Thank you to all 3 of you. Councilors McClelland and Councilors Forkham, I hope that you will continue to volunteer. Volunteers are the lifeblood of our small community, and your energy and involvement would be appreciated. Councilor Kenyon, congratulations on your election to a 4-year term beginning in 2021 and for your dedication to Oakridge. I will make arrangements to deliver your certificates to you tomorrow. Council, will you please join me in a round of applause for these 3 councilors? Great. And in your packet, I believe you saw the certificates that we have made up. Each of you have certificates, and I'll get a hold of you tomorrow to drop them off to you. Thank you. Let's move on to council comments. Council, do you have anything you would like to comment on?
This is Councilor Whitney. I just wanted to give Jackie my condolences for her father.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Jackie, for being here. And thank you, Bobby. All of us, I'm sure, are extending our condolences to her.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments from council?
I do have one, Kathy.
Go ahead, Councilor Kenyon.
I noticed that our minutes did get updated from our 11/19 meeting.
Yep.
And I wanted to point out, though, that it does say that the TSP motion passed. However, it's in our council rules that it can only pass in a single meeting if the vote is unanimous, and it wasn't. So I wanted to know where we go from here on that.
Okay.
Maybe we can look into it.
Yeah, we can look into it. Absolutely. We'll bring it up. I'm not prepared to dig through and look at it right now, but I appreciate you bringing it up. Did you mention that to the city administrator at all, or is this first brush at that?
I didn't really, it was included in the email that I sent him, but I didn't really point it out as a,
Okay.
What do we do?
Okay. Thank you, Counselor. All right. And so as far as business of the city council, I do want to bring up the warming center. I know there's been lots of questions in the community about it. I want to preface this by starting out that the warming center is not a city function. The warming center up until this last couple months has been a function of the community. The city stepped in when they lost their insurance and determined that we could, in fact, insure them. We took some time to determine how much it would cost. And in the meantime, helped and pursued reissuing, having the insurance reissued by St. Vinny's, who had done it previously. And they decided that they didn't want to do that. So the city said that they would do that. I also received a community member stepped up and said that she would be interested in doing a fundraiser with the artists in town to help recoup that cost. In the meantime, we had a meeting of the volunteers. We did a Zoom meeting and invited anyone who had volunteered and said they would help with the warming center. And during that meeting, we discussed how the purpose of that meeting was to determine the protocol and the process and procedure that we would all use to, when the warming center was open, to take care of the individuals, our customers who came in, the intake that would be involved, the screening that we would be required to do because of the insurance that we have. So that screening is a temperature taking and a list of 10 questions that you have to ask. If any of those questions, 2 of those questions are positive or the temperature is positive, then you can't serve them. And we discussed what would happen then. What are our next steps? Do we secure a ride for them? Do we ask them if they want to go to the fire department? Do we have an EMT on call? So we talked about all those things, and then we moved on to talk about what the process would be. How do we protect ourselves? How do we clean our units? You know, we have the 3 units out there, and that was easily accomplished because we have a pressurized sprayer that does the disinfection that the city has, and we would get training in that. So we talked about all of the nuances of being able to do this. And the group, as we were discussing, also then said, how many individuals do we service? And we service 1 or 2 individuals, remembering that the warming center is only open when it gets below, Brian, 37, is that right? What am I?
29.
No, it's higher.
Last year, Kent, it was 33 degrees.
33, yeah, 33. So when it gets below 33, they were opening the warming center, and that would have been our protocol for this year too. And so looking at the past use, there was, 1 or 2 individuals, sometimes 3, sometimes none. Sometimes there were opportunities that we were open and then we ended up closing by 10 because no one had come. Looking at that and weighing it against the 6 individuals that we would have to have every night to open it, the group felt that the risk with COVID was too high at this time, especially with our numbers rising. So we decided not to open. We will reevaluate that come January, the end of January, and look at it and look at better ways to accomplish keeping both our customers and ourselves safe. We have volunteers. It would be nice if we had more volunteers that were of a younger age. Many of those that volunteer are in the high risk category. So that is always an issue. So anyway, I just wanted to get that information out to the community so that you know. As far as I know, and Brian can correct me, the 3 units that we have, which were lent to us by Lane County, will stay. They are still hooked up to electricity, and they're just being monitored. And when the time is right, we will open them again. So I'm sure there may be some questions. If there are, I'm happy to answer any of them. I don't see any hands or jumping up and down. So
Kathy?
yes, go ahead,
Sorry.
Councilman.
I actually went down to the Greenwaters Park tonight to bring some hot food to the lady who's organizing
Yes,
blankets and
Tink. Yeah.
hats and Tink.
Mhm.
And she mentioned that the police had just been by to let them know that you were wanting to talk to her about something. So she's excited about that.
Yeah, I
So
already
pass
got
that
an
on.
email from James, and he shared her phone number with me. So I will probably be giving her a call tomorrow just to chat with her.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for bringing it up. Anything else? So let's see, Audie, I think that answered your questions about the warming center. So there you go. Any other comments from council? Oh, Audie, I see your finger popping up. Do you have another, thumb? Yes, that means good. I got it. Excellent. All right. Well, let's move on then to the consent agenda. It appears that from your comments, Councillor Kenyon, that you would like to pull out the November 5th. Is it November 5th or 19th?
19th, but I don't need to pull the minutes out. They are now, well, I don't know. They reflect what happened, but it's just, my question is whether or not what happened was appropriate considering it goes against council rules.
Well, my suggestion would be that we go ahead and pass them, but that we will look at it and determine whether or not we need to do a secondary reading. Does that sound good to you?
Yes.
Okay, all right, then the consent agenda stands. Can I have a motion to pass this consent agenda?
Yes, I make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
And was that Paul? That was Paul.
Yeah.
And all right, can I have a vote, please? Jackie, will you call the roll?
Yes. Councillor McClelland,
Aye.
Mayor Holston,
Aye.
Councillor Kenyon,
Aye.
Councillor Hullett,
Aye.
Councillor Forcum,
Aye.
Councillor Whitney.
Aye.
Thank you, that passes. And we'll move on to the business from the city council. As far as I know, there isn't any. If there's anything else that we would like to discuss, I don't see any little blue hands or people waving hands at me. So let's move on to 10, which is 10.1 OLCC permit renewal. Brian, would you like to introduce this?
Just a real quick update from me first, and then we'll get to it if that's okay.
Sure.
I want to give the council an update on our COVID status with regards to the staff. So over the entire staff, we've had, and this includes part-timers and volunteers, we've had 10 COVID positive cases. Of those 10, 4 were full-time employees, 2 were part-time employees, and 4 were volunteers. 5 of those 10 are in post-isolation, so they've gotten past the positive and are on the other side and able to come out and continue to work. The get well date for the remaining is the 24th of December, barring any secondary infections that might arise. So that's where we stand now. And particularly hard hit, obviously, was the fire department, and they're on the other side. They're coming out the other side now, even though it's still a little challenging. We did have to work with the union and get permission to use people-ready part-timers to fill in to give Captain Hollett a break because he had a couple too many days in a row. So they helped out there. So thank the people ready and the volunteers that pitched in.
Okay.
Grant update. So tonight was the date, if you recall, this last cycle they had where it was kind of an unrestricted grant application period for small business. The community lending works actually sent emails to all the people that were awarded. And if you see your constituents, let them know that there's actually a response required. So please check their emails in case, so they don't miss the opportunity. And to give you a quick update on the Apogee status, which is, in other words, student remote learning. And those of you who are at the school board got a thorough brief on it, but they are on target to install and have it ready to go by the beginning of the next semester. So in January, early January. And that'll provide community-wide Wi-Fi to students so they can utilize that to study. They're located on sort of strategic buildings around the city to provide the best coverage. Not every single citizen is covered in Westford or in Oakridge, but this is phase one, so it might get better. The city's partnership with this was to provide the infrastructure to stick the antenna on top of it and share a little bit of bandwidth. There'll be an antenna on top of fire station, on top of police station or city hall, and on top of the WAC. So those are the three locations for the city. Also involved were the school will have an antenna on it, and the Lutheran Church and Westford School. And then we're still determining the last location because there were some hiccups with the technical part of putting it on the Nazarene. So we'll see where it goes. But in the future, that might end up being an ability for all the community to share that Wi-Fi at certain periods of the day when it's not being utilized heavily by students. So look for that in the next month.
Great.
And that's all I have. So we'll run into 10.1 if you're ready.
Yes, go ahead, please.
This is an LLC liquor license application for the Moose Lodge 2191 here in town. The exhibits, the application itself. We're looking for a motion on the floor and a vote. You wouldn't normally be seeing this, but they inadvertently let their license expire. So since it lapsed, I'm bringing it back to council because you do have an opportunity to weigh in once again if you have a problem. No fiscal impact, and the options are to recommend it be granted or be denied. We're recommending option 1, and the motion's before you.
Thank you, Brian. Can I have a motion from council?
I move we recommend granting an OLCC liquor license to Moose Lodge number 2191.
Thank you, Councilor Kenyon. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
And that was seconded by Councilor Whitney. Is there any discussion? I don't hear anybody asking for discussion. So Jackie, will you call for a vote?
Yes. Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Counselor Forkham,
Aye.
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Counselor Whitney,
Aye.
Counselor McClelland,
Aye.
Mayor Holston.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. That passes. Let's move on to 10.2. Brian?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, 10.2, this is approved funding for Devonshire Group LLC to submit a grant application for the 2021 WIT Innovation Program on behalf of the city of Oakridge. It's 10.2, there's no exhibit. You had a work session on this last week. We're looking for a motion from the floor and a vote. The details are there, but essentially we're looking to get an application produced by the 20th of January, which is nice. It's a tight deadline, which is why you're sitting looking at it today, to develop a biomass utilization campus at the OIP. Lane County has agreed to partner with the city and share 50% of the cost for this. The impact is total for the whole effort is 12.5. Our share is 6,250. and I threw in this would come out of the OIP restricted fund. And I threw in the ending balance projected for this year, which is $586,000 approximately. Your options are to approve the funding of the $6,250 to the Devonshire Group to produce a grant application, or to not approve the funding. Staff's recommending option 1. It's a relatively small price for, I think, a lot of opportunity or possibilities there. And the motion's before you.
Thank you, Brian. Counselors, may I have a motion?
I move we fund the requested $6,250 for the Devonshire Group LLC to write and submit an application for the 2021 Wood Innovation Grant Cycle.
Thank you, Counselor Whitney. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And I think that was Counselor Forkham is made the second. And it's open for discussion. Council, is there any discussion? I don't see any hands.
I
Oh,
have a couple things.
Okay, Counselor Hollett, and then Counselor Kenyon, I saw your hand too. So Counselor Hollett, please go first.
So this is regarding the presentation that we listened to last week. Sarah Ultimus was involved in the group about the biomass fuels. That's correct. Is that the right term?
That's correct.
So, you know, I've been, I do have a couple more questions, and I had planned on calling and talking to Sarah straight, but I didn't get time to do that. But one of my questions is, my understanding was the grant is going to be awarded in, what was it, springtime? Is that correct?
That's
Yes.
correct.
But they're asking us to hold off sales for an entire year. So I'm curious, why wouldn't we just hold off sales until we hear about the grant, which sounds like it's only a few months out?
Well, actually, Sarah is dialed in tonight, so with your permission, I'll let her
Perfect.
respond.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah, so the grant proposal, as of right now, I mean, things might change, but the high-level discussion is for the in-kind contribution for the city would set aside 10 acres to be developed in the industrial park, and it wouldn't allocate certain lots. It would just say that acreage would be available. So as long as there was 10 acres available, which right now there's more than twice that, you'd be meeting the terms of the grant. And then as an entity would come and want to locate to Oakridge, as part of that opportunity, they would get that first year with very low level lease, just covering taxes, and have that available. So I think it's kind of up to you guys on holding off on sales or whatnot, but you would still meet the intent in terms of that grant as long as there was those 10 acres available. Now I'm saying that right now, maybe as we get further into this, if there's bigger asks and the threshold goes up and how much money you're asking for under that grant, maybe the acreage that would be suggested to be set aside could be increased. But with the targets that we're looking at right now, it'd just be about 10 acres, I think, would be the numbers that would get you there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so I guess I left the last meeting assuming that it was the entire OIP, that we had to hold off sales for the whole bit. So is there a certain, is there anywhere of the OIP that they have to have, for instance, water and sewer? I mean, as you know, there's a lot of, the OIP is kind of unique because some areas has certain foundation things and certain areas does not. Is there any particular area of the OIP that they really need to have? So for instance, you know, like the big metal shed area, is there anywhere we really need to keep for them?
I would say no. It would just make it more attractive for someone to be able to come and set up to have those places that are a little more developed. But part of the grant application will be setting aside several tens of thousands of dollars to do development. So if we say we're to go with 65,000 available, if it was one of those lots that didn't have sewer or power ran to it, that could be part of that package for that company to come in, that they would get that ran there and to be available by a certain date. So I'd say no, but I think the more kind of closer to developed lots that are available, then maybe the quicker you'd get a company in. So it's just a little bit of give and take there for you guys to be considering as the package is developed.
And as an aside, as a CA, we did budget to extend water and sewer down Kokanee for this budget cycle.
Right.
We haven't started yet, but that was a project plan for the spring.
Okay, I have a couple more questions. Thank you, Sarah. My next one, and it's probably a Sarah question too, is, so I'm thinking about in what ways having this biomass company there, how could that affect our community? I fully realize there used to be a mill there, but I think Oakridge has changed, in the last 30 years. So I'm thinking, residents and future, I'm imagining that this company would have smokestacks and maybe to some it might be, I'm just trying to think about, could there be backlash from the community that would be upset? And if so, I'm not saying that that should be our only thing to think about, but I just want to know kind of now before we get too far into this, what they could potentially be.
Yeah, and I think it's good for you guys as a council to be considering that. But that being said, I don't think it'd be full-on mill operations. That would be like the older mills that you see with smokestacks and whatnot. Mills these days are much more technical, higher end stuff. And so I would expect any operations, what you would hear is probably your kind of forklift type sounds. So backup beepers and that type of noise. But you already have Davidson Construction in there. Those guys are in there working every single day. And our office isn't far from them. We rarely hear noise from them. So I don't expect too much noise that would be coming out for neighbors. Other than, just more truck traffic probably, and some of that kind of construction noise that people are frankly already hearing with the firewood program being there. And when it comes to emissions, that would be really the driver, is to try and find biomass companies that would not emit. They'd have to meet LRAPA standards. If they were going to have emissions, they'd have to have scrubbers and whatnot, but there is other technologies that would be available. So it would not look like the mill that used to be there in the 90s. If there was, first off, I should clarify, it probably will not be one entity that come in. It'd be multiple different businesses, but their operations would probably look something along the lines of what we're seeing with a community firewood program, but just maybe scaled up, double, triple that size, but not huge like what we saw before with Pope and Talbot. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's really what I was kind of hoping for. I think Pope and Talbot was fine, 30 plus years ago, but I think putting that same, it wouldn't fit right now if we put that same thing there. So for me, the $6,000 is really a tiny, tiny investment that could be really huge to boost our economy here in Oakridge. So for me, the monetary part is not really an issue. It was more, and you already hit on it, the LRAPA part was my next question that you already answered. So I think you answered all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Hallett. Any other councilors have questions? Dawn, did you had some questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to help clarifying the difference between our in-kind responsibility and the, if I remember right, in the meeting that we had last week, something like 125,000 of the actual grant would be able to be spent by the city. And I think you touched on this a minute ago, potentially on infrastructure. So what's the difference between spending that and our in-kind part, or are they one and the same?
Yeah, so when you see it in a budget, it all looks like it's one budget, but the in-kind are the things that the city is bringing to the table. So what you're bringing to the table is that space at the industrial park that you'd offer at a really low lease. So that's basically like you're bringing cash to the project, but it's not truly cash. So it's called in kind. Now the 125 that would be available, and that would be shared with Prineville. So it wouldn't be all for Oakridge. But that would be cash that the grant would provide to invest in the project. So that would be kind of earned revenue for the city. And how that would be allocated, I think, would really kind of track the businesses that want to come in. So if there were businesses that wanted to come to Oakridge first, we'd have the first kind of bite at that apple. Whereas if it were Prineville first, maybe they'd have the bite. So there'd be a bit of back and forth and discussion with them. But right now, it would be kind of 50-50 between both communities. And then another thing I didn't mention when I was answering Chrissy's question, but I'll mention it here. It doesn't have to be for infrastructure improvements. It just has to be things that are going to advance the project in the industrial park. So it really could look like putting money towards developing more office space that would service these businesses and other types of kind of long-term investments that would make it easier for those businesses to be there and stay there. And then those are improvements that the OIP keeps.
Sarah, could that, oh, go ahead, Dawn. If you have more questions, please do.
Yeah, I did. So on the in-kind part, if we did do that as like a lease for so many lots, it's going to be for a period of time that equals a certain dollar amount, right? It wouldn't be ongoing that they would always have a free lease or a very reduced price lease. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I should be careful in saying, I mean, it might be that the council and the city would negotiate something further beyond what would be in the grant, but the grant proposal would say for the term of the grant, which we get to choose between the 18 months or 2 years, and they might even extend it to 3, but whatever the proposal is for that many years, it'd be during that time period, that in-kind amount that the city sets aside does total that 50% match. So like I was saying, it kind of depends on how much we're asking for, which right now, if we split it with Prineville, we're going to try and get up to that $250,000 amount. So that's where the 125 comes in, because that's 50% in kind. And then for the duration of the project. So the longer we go out, so we go out 2 years or 3 years, then it definitely could be fewer acres or a lesser amount. But then again, it's kind of tying up that property for that long of a period. So I think these are things as we really start to pull the package together, we'll look at, do we just want to look at 1 year, 18 months, how much money, what's the going rate and whatnot.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that we all understand, and also for the community, that the money that we'll be allotting, $6,250, should the council choose to do that, does come out of the OIP fund. And that OIP fund is not in the general fund. It is not money that we are using and taking from someplace else. It is money that is restricted to the OIP and needs to be used in the OIP. So this is a really wonderful way to, in my opinion, to find out whether or not this is a viable opportunity for the city at a cost that isn't too exorbitant, as well as partnering with Prineville and the opportunity that may afford us also. Any other questions? Go ahead, Sarah.
And just one comment, and I sent this in an email to a couple counselors, but I probably should have just forwarded it on to everybody. The hiring Devonshire to write that grant application, once they do that, you guys will kind of own that body of work. You're paying to own that. So if for some reason we weren't to get this first grant, then we could go at June and apply for that other biomass grant opportunity. And then this wood innovation comes back up again next January. So if for some reason we weren't to be successful in this first round, you'd have all that material already developed for those couple of opportunities. And then I talked to the Devonshire group about this before saying this, but I thought it was the case, and they very much agreed that they'd be invested too in working with Oakridge to advance this project. So they would also be very interested in looking at other opportunities if this one weren't to work out. But I think for the city of Oakridge, it bodes really well that you already have so many partners at the table, and including the grantors themselves already know about the project and are excited about the opportunities. So, so yeah, it's not just a one-shot thing if it weren't to be successful. I think this is kind of a little bit of investment to start the opportunity to look into these, into developing this. And the fact that the county is going to match, I think also is really good.
Yeah, that is really great. Any other questions before we move into a vote?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. And
Go ahead, Councilor.
one of the things I really liked about this is that the biomass material will come from our local forest area, and it'll be helping clean up our forest floors and help reduce our fire risk.
Yes.
So I think that's a really nice piece of this as well. So I really like that.
Thank you. Councilor Kenyon, I saw a hand.
Yeah, one last thing. So Oakridge is partnering with Lane County to fund Devonshire to write the grant. And Prineville's involved somehow. Are they getting their own grant that's completely separate from us, or are they sharing this grant with us?
Yeah, they're sharing the grant and they're also paying Devonshire the same amount. So you're kind of getting
okay,
in price for doing this work. So yeah, the grant that'll be written will be very much written mirroring for both communities the same thing, but Oakridge would still have that whole body of work. So whether the project, if it weren't to be successful in this round of wood innovation, whether you'd want to keep on trying with Prineville on it or peel away in the future if you weren't to get it, those would be decisions for you to decide. But yeah, right now having both the communities together really does maximize all the dollars to get this work done. I mean, this really, to use a consulting firm to develop a proposal like this at this price is not how it usually works. We're usually talking $25,000 easily to develop proposals like this.
Right. Good point.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, Council, any other questions? Jackie, will you call for a vote?
Counselor Whitney,
Aye.
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Counselor McClelland,
Aye.
Mayor Holston,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Counselor Forcom,
Aye.
Thank you, Council. That passes. We will move on to, and Sarah, thank you for being available. I appreciate you dialing in and giving us the opportunity to ask more questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
All right. Brian, let's move on to our Finance Director update, 10.3.
Yes, Eric did generate the finance reports for November, which you all should have received, but I'll hand it over to him because I think he's got some additional information for you. Eric, are you in? Are you in, Eric?
I see him.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to unmute. Do you have the graphs, Brian?
Yeah, one sec. Let me pull them up.
So I've been tracking the revenue and expenditures based on what was budgeted and then actually what's occurring. So I've been making graphs instead of trying to bore you with those huge lists of numbers. So let's see, red is got to be expenditures. So the light red line is what is budgeted for expenditures for the year. The dark red line is what's actually happening. It doesn't look very impressive on this graph, but expenditures are under what was budgeted, so that's good. And then can you go to revenue? Here we have the revenue one, same thing. The light line is what's budgeted. The dark green line is what's actual. The difference that's happening in November, the last dark green line, is just a difference of what we anticipated, the tax revenue coming in and what has actually come in. But actually we got a lot more of the tax revenue in December, so that's not concerning at all. And then the last graph, Brian. So I've talked about restricted cash a number of times here. So I just wanted to show this graph here. So the light orange line in the middle is the restricted cash amount as budgeted. The dark orange horizontal line is the restricted cash that's actually occurring. It's changing because as rent comes in for the OIP and stuff like that, that line creeps up a little bit. The light blue line was what was budgeted for the cash in the governmental funds. And you can see it drops below that restricted cash line, which we can't have happen. I don't even know why it was over there below it beforehand. But to get it back above, we did that transfer from, or the loan, excuse me, from water and wastewater in September. And to get us back above that restricted cash line. And I just wanted to show that because that's what that whole restricted cash line is all about, and taking money from other funds to put in the general fund to keep the general fund, all the governmental funds above that restricted cash line. It's not reflected in this graph because this graph only goes to November, but those loans to water and wastewater were just paid back in the last week. So even though the tax revenue is going to spike us up in December, the repayment of those loans is going to bring us back down. Now, the real trick is not going below the line for the last few months of the year. So keeping the revenues higher than what was expected is great, and keeping the expenditures lower than what was expected is great. So hoping when we get down there, we're good. The other thing is we've been going through the audit, which is almost done, and we're having the audit presentation next week. I think that's about it. Any questions?
Is it okay to speak, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I did notice on the financials that the property tax did look really low.
Mhm.
I'm glad to hear that more came in, but was it a lot more, or are we still, how's the community doing on that?
So we budgeted $1,073,000 of property tax revenue coming in, and $1,050,000 has come in, which is 97% of what we estimated. Yeah.
Okay.
I would expect the other 3% is just going to trickle in over the next few months, but
Sure.
yeah.
Sure. And that's probably about average of what we get every year.
Yeah, I didn't go back to review that yet, but I know that I'm still recording property tax revenue from Lane County every once in a while. So I would expect there's still more to come in. And it's 23,
yeah.
I almost said only 23,000, but that's not accurate. There's still 23,000 that needs to come in.
Okay, sure.
Hopefully comes in, yeah.
And then I wondered, I noticed that there's a CARES Act grant line in the Statement of Revenue and Expenditures now, and I wondered, what is the city using that grant for? Do you know, or is that a Brian
It's
question?
all their preventive measures that the Public Works Department is doing mostly, and then there's the like the remoting in that we're doing, the admin department and PP&E stuff. I can
speak to a couple things, Eric.
Yeah, go ahead.
Some of the big ticket items, we bought a Zoll monitor defibrillator for one of the ambulance units, which was authorized under the act.
Right.
We also bought and sent $10,000 to Community Lending Works to give grants to small business, which is also another option to use CARES Act for. And so those are kind of the big ones. And then as we're going to actually file our next to last reimbursement request hopefully tomorrow. And it also authorizes you to pay for public safety salaries. So we're going to finish up our coronavirus grant by paying for salaries for firefighters and police.
Oh, excellent. And then my last question question for finance is, Eric, I think it was about a month ago, I had sent you some questions, and one of them was on the water and sewer payment in lieu of franchise. Did you ever get an answer on that? Are we going to continue doing that or no?
Yeah, I did get an answer. I thought I replied, but whatever, maybe I didn't. So yes, apparently that was a thing before. The payment in lieu of water was it was a different way to get money from other funds into the general fund, but correct, it wasn't supposed to be happening. So that transfer that I had made, I reversed it. So all that money went back to where it was supposed to be.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions of Eric, Council?
This is Bobby. So in regards to the CARES Act funding, we have and are using that to its full maximum potential, right? Because I think we haven't. Okay, yeah, because I think we have to spend it by the end of this month.
Right.
And so have you guys followed up with, already lost the name of the company that we gave $10,000 of that to help with small businesses? Have we followed up with them to make sure that they have spent out their $10,000 for small businesses?
It started to look a little rocky at first, but when I checked, as it turns out, they were able to distribute all $10,000 of the funds.
Perfect. Perfect. That's great. Yeah.
I have a question about CARES Act. Is there the possibility for that organization to do another round of grants, seeing that we're not necessarily out of the COVID time frame?
Well, the problem is we have to expend everything by the 30th of December. And the Lane County has not really set up another program where cities can contribute together to Community Lending Works to provide grants. But the most recent grant cycle, on top of what we provided, the 10K, I think we've done pretty well as far as supporting our businesses here. Was that your question?
I can answer to that a little bit if you don't mind, because with doing LIHEAP, there's a CARES Act LIHEAP component to that, and along with that, there's some pieces that have come in through my work that I'm aware of, and I know that it had to do with the stimulus packages, and that there was a drop date where you had to spend all your money by a certain date, and if you don't spend it by that date, you have to return what's left. And it's my understanding that unless we get another stimulus package passed that includes funding like that, there's nothing else unless our state comes up with additional money somewhere to fund that.
Right.
All right, thank you.
All right, Council. Thank you. Let's move on, Brian, to economic development update, if there is one.
Grace, I believe, is dialed in if she has anything for us.
Hello, Council. I don't have too many big updates tonight, other than I am very excited about the biomass legalization. I think that's a really good economic development possibility for the community. And I've also been working with the Chamber and with Oregon Rain and other local and regional partners to kind of look at tourism and other economic development opportunities in the area. So I'm really excited in the new year to kind of make progress with those groups moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Let's move on to police update 10.5.
Chief, are you still there? Yep.
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. Council and citizens, we had 496 total calls for service in November. It resulted in 35 case reports. We're doing some of our end of the year training. Kind of a neat thing this year, since the chief of police conference and all of our meetings and stuff were done over Zoom. It was a very cheap price to attend the training portion of it. So actually had all the full-time staff attend the chief's training. So they kind of see some of the stuff us chiefs have to do. And plus there was a use of force training, some mental health training, de-escalation training. There was a bunch of training they got to see from the admin side. So that was really neat. And to get all of us through that, it was, I think, $500 or so. And so that's really cheap because the conferences are about that much just for one chief to go to. But since it was on Zoom, they did it at a really cheap price. So that was some really good training. We got everybody through and fulfilled a lot of training hours. We also had some firearms range training last month. I believe we're going to do some more this month. Some of the officers had some de-escalation training. And then as far as we've had a couple good cases lately, one of the officers did a stop, got a bunch of meth off the streets. So a couple of pretty big bags for us, about the size of my fist, 2 bags worth. So that's quite a bit. We had some people go to jail over that. We have had a lot of outreach to our unhoused population at night and both in the mornings. And so I'm hoping as well that we can get some people in to volunteer for the warming center, because there is a little bit of need there. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Chief. Let's move on to the fire department update, Brian.
Yeah, I gave you a little bit of a snapshot with the COVID update. It has been a pretty trying time keeping the staff going, but we have been able to maintain a sort of a second out capability, and it's been busy. We've been the number of COVID cases transports have increased, and we've also mechanical condition. We've got studs on all 3 of the medic units, so that's a good thing. Get up the hill if we need to. And I think Scott is dialed in. Do you have anything to add, Scott?
I think you covered what I was going to talk about, Brian, but thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you. And I just want to say a big thank you to the fire department and all the volunteers. I know this has been a really tough last 2 months. You've worked your little hindies off, and the community is very appreciative of it. And we just hope that you are taking care of yourselves as you take care of us. So thank you, and keep up the good work. Let's move on to Public Works.
1 second, let me pull up the proper report here. All right, this is for November 2020. As you can see, we distributed 14.8 million gallons of water. We treated 15.7, which is kind of normal for this time of year in the rain. 24 service orders, 0 water leaks. We had wastewater repair, sewer plug between 2nd Commercial, 18 locates. They've been doing repairs to potholes, drainage, hillside store maintenance, park maintenance, fleet maintenance. They've been putting the restrooms, winterizing them for winter, servicing generators to prepare for up in Dead Mountain, prepare for the winter. And we got the sander and snowplow ready should it happen. And they've helped with the land yard waste disposal. They prepped that and put out some markers on where to dump. And we're at some water meters. But that's as far as community services. I think if you've driven by the new restroom, they are putting the final touches on it. Just in time to get winterized. But at that point, we will move on to the pavilion project. So.
Okay, good. And just a reminder too, to the community and everybody that the yard debris program is the first Saturday of every month. That would be January 2nd. As of today, I don't have any volunteers to open that up. So if you're interested in manning the booth, or checking people in on that day, please contact City Hall so we can get you on the list. You can also call the Oakridge Air number and leave a message. They are taking messages for that. And is there anything else I was going to say?
And Mayor, I might have twisted my neighbor's arm to volunteer, so you might have to.
Excellent. I like hearing that. Okay. And I don't think I have anything else on that to do. Thank you to the Public Works for putting up the Christmas tree at Banner Park. We always appreciate it. Yes, Paul. Did you say something?
Yeah, I see the chief had his hand up.
Oh, Chief has his hand up. Thank you. Chief, go ahead.
I was going to wait till you're done, but do you want me to go now? Or
yeah, go ahead, please.
There's one thing I forgot to do, and I want to make sure it's done. myself and my department wanted to really thank the outgoing counselors. Specifically, everyone wanted to thank Paul, because in his time on council, he's probably ridden with the officers more than anyone else that's been on council the entire time I've been here. So the officers really did have a shout out and wanted to say thank to Paul, because they really appreciated when that happens, and that Paul did that a lot. And we all like his smiling face on the school bus too. So just wanted to get that out.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I don't think we have any other items. Brian, am I correct? Is that finishing out our agenda today?
Let's set for the public comment, unless there's anybody that wants that.
Okay, we will go to public comment. And I don't see anything.
Actually, I have one.
Go ahead, please, Sarah.
I didn't even think about it until I started talking. I got an email today from I'm going to forget the name of the organization that does the FireWise National Fire Protection Agency, that the Greater Oakridge Area FireWise assessment application was approved.
Yay!
So, yeah, so all the area around Oakridge right now is now designated as FireWise. We do have to do some work to maintain that designation, but it does help us with grants. And then this next year in 21, we want to do the assessments for Oakridge proper and make a big push to get Oakridge proper FireWise. Then we'd have our whole community designated as FireWise. And ODF has been notified, DEQ, and then also Oregon Office of Oregon Emergency Management, OEM. And then our next step is to work with ODF to see if we can apply for FireWise funding to do the mitigation work in that area. And we'll keep looking at those opportunities. But that was good news.
That is good news. Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. I really appreciate it. All right. Well, counselors, those of you this is your last council meeting, thank you again. And we hope to see your smiling faces in other areas and venues. And council, please enjoy your holidays. And I'll get a hold of the three of you that have certificates tomorrow. So I'll talk to you then. Good night, everybody.
Hey, before everybody leaves,
yes,
Merry
Lottie.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and thank you guys.
Ho, 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 ho.
Oh, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Hey, bye.
Bye.